from doing this in the 80s and 90s, have you seen a difference in young professionals today as opposed to young professionals back then?
Oh, yeah.
What are some of those differences? This is the stuff that I love to talk about, because I someone like you, I think, would have a great insight into this.
Well, it's really interesting because there's a lot of talk out there, among human resource professionals, which I guess we're sort of a part of, the millennial thing, But I guess one of the things that we've really seen over time is that there isn't the sense of loyalty, of permanence, of commitment. Both sides of the equation. Again, right now, nobody thinks beyond 5 years.
Huh.
That's the planning horizon. When companies were used to be looking for somebody that they would hire and keep forever. And if people had more than a couple jobs on their resume, they were labeled a job hopper, and it was really hard to place them. And honestly, if somebody, when I first started, we hardly ever placed anybody over the age of 45.
Really?
Because if they weren't established somewhere by then, something's wrong, right? And now we get the opposite. If somebody's been with a company for 10, 15 years and hasn't been consistently advancing, they figure there's something wrong with them. People your age in their careers, most of them will have multiple jobs.
Sure.
And it's like the magic window is 3 to 5 years. You got to stick around 3 years or you're a job hopper. But if you're not moving up by 5 years, you better move out.
Then you're not motivated or something.
Something's wrong.
Right. Man, it's interesting. I see a lot of college students, they'll graduate, and then in that first 6 months, maybe they get that job right out of graduation.
Right.
6 months later, they just don't like it. So they say, okay, we'll quit and we'll go on to the next thing. Do you get a lot of people that are like, hey, I've been working for 6 months, just wasn't working out, so I need you to help me?
That's happened forever. I'll tell you how that happens. I've seen this over and over. This is why small companies avoid hiring fresh grads. They let the big companies do it, because what happens is they come from the incubator world of college and they get a job. Sure. And they find out that it's hard, and they think it must be the job. So they quit and get a new job. And then they find out that it's still hard. And somewhere they realize that's why they call it work. They used to call them first bouncers. That's what happened. It's just part of the maturing process.
Sure.
So you see that, even 30 years ago, we saw that. Mm-hmm. It's just a part of the whole growing up process. They when they find out that you actually have to show up every day and you can't cut class and you can't show up hungover, right. Whatever. You got to you're getting paid. You got to do a job.
Right.
Many of them think that they must have picked the wrong job because it's hard. And, then they get another job and it's still hard and it kind of sinks in and then they settle in.
Sure. I'm only 28. So it seems like so many college students nowadays, they might pick their major that they stick with at their junior or sometimes even senior year. It seems like there's this lack of direction a lot of times with younger people. Being in the business that you are, have you seen that change? Like, for people that are in the food industry long term, did they want to do this going into college and saying, I'm going to get my degree in X and then I'm going to go to recruiter Mossman and they're going to point me in the right direction? Or are you finding people that later on in their college career or later on in life, they say, you know what, let's try the food industry out?
Honestly, I see both.
Okay.
But it also it kind of depends. In the technical part of it, you pretty much have to have made a decision and got the right education mm-hmm. and gotten into the business. But if you're in more operations or marketing or sales or other kinds of things, you absolutely can do that. I guess that would be really the big difference.
Sure.
And one of the things that we see is that like I was saying before, the food companies might not always be where somebody thinks they want to live. And that often ends up limiting people's careers because, they grew up near Hershey. They went to college. They got a degree in food science. They went to work at Hershey. Well, if you don't want to move from Hershey, there's not too many other games in town. I
Right.
mean, there are a few other, like there's a number of snack food companies right in that area. But I mean, basically, as soon as you limit yourself geographically, you've limited your career.
Right.
If you've chosen an industry like the food industry. Now, and then one of the things that people get confused with is that we don't do anything with food service.
Okay.
With restaurants and that kind of. The only exception to that is that some of the really biggies, McDonald's, Wendy's, they have their own R&D staff,
Sure.
just as if they were manufacturing the food themselves, and they have significant influence and control over all of their suppliers. Whoever makes hamburger patties for McDonald's makes them exactly as McDonald's tells them.
Sure.
They don't have any latitude, so they've got, when Wendy's comes out with a new sandwich, some food person that works in their R&D department came up with that and then went to all the suppliers to get all the right, parts to make that sandwich.